It's good to be back with you, to see you again this morning. So I want to share a little wisdom from the author Marjorie Williams. "What is real?" asked the Velveteen Rabbit one day to the Skin Horse when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the Skin Horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but to really love you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the Skin Horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." And I end that passage. When I first heard that passage from the Velveteen Rabbit, I assumed that the Skin Horse and the Velveteen Rabbit became real because of the love of the child. I thought they were made real by an outside force. But Professor and author Brene Brown has opened my eyes to a deeper understanding, and I have come to equate being real with being authentic. So Brene says this about authenticity in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. "Authenticity is not something we have or we don't have. It's a practice, a conscious choice of how we want to live. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be and embracing who we are." So this is what I now believe happened to the Velveteen Rabbit and the Skin Horse. They embraced their authentic selves. They embraced that authenticity by how they showed up to the child's love. And they became real because they lived their authenticity. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, co-founders of Unity, understood the need to become our authentic selves, although they usually framed it in the language of becoming our Christ self. Myrtle addresses this idea in her book, How to Let God Help You, one of my favorite Unity books. And I'm reading out of the chapter that was entitled The Longing of Our Souls. And so Myrtle writes, she says, "We seem to be divided into fractions and sections. We give one part of our mind to one thing and another part of our mind to another. And always within us is this longing for something higher and unrest because we are not satisfied with the life as it seems to us. There is that within us which wants something more than the outer activities of life. And we shall never be satisfied until we find ourselves." And I end that reading. Did you hear that? Find ourselves. See, Myrtle knew it. We are lost, and we don't even know it. Or maybe I should reframe that idea of being lost as we don't know what we are. We human beings misplace our spiritual identity, and we live as if the only reality that we knew is what we are wearing, what we are eating, or what we are doing as human beings. And yet I truly believe that we will only become real when we show up and we choose to live from that spiritual authenticity. Our Wayshower Jesus spoke to this idea of becoming real during his ministry on earth. The Gospels say that Jesus used his ministry to heal and to teach. And he taught of the kingdom of God. And I believe that the kingdom of God is the core of Jesus' message in the Gospels. So, out of the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, I read this. Once Jesus was asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God was coming, and he answered, "The kingdom of God is not coming with things that can be observed, nor will they say, 'Oh, look, here it is,' or 'there it is.' For the kingdom of God is within you." I end that passage. The kingdom of God is within us. You see, I believe that when Jesus teaches us to seek first the kingdom of God, he is talking to us about living from our spiritual authenticity. See, I see all of Jesus' parables as teaching how to embody our spiritual authenticity, bringing it out of us, living it. And this is perhaps most clearly seen for me in the parables that are collected in the 15th chapter of Luke. See, religious scholars refer to these as the lost parables because they are the parables about the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the prodigal son. And to me, these parables speak about us finding this spiritual authenticity. So that chapter begins with words that I want to share with you. It begins, "Now all of the tax collectors and the sinners were coming to listen to him." That's Jesus. "And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, 'This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them.'" And I end that passage. Now, you might think, like I did for many years, that this was just a throwaway introduction to the parables. But there is actually a deep internal conflict that this opening lines speak to. In the Jewish society of Jesus' time, there lived a deep animosity that split the population. On one hand, there were the Habarim. These were societies of very scrupulous Jews who pledged themselves to study the scriptures and strict observance of the law. And they observed rules of spiritual ceremonial purity, and we know them in the Gospels as the Pharisees. The other group were the people of the land, shepherds, farmers, laborers, who did not keep the law in a precise fashion. Frequently, because of their work, they could not observe the ceremonial laws of purity. And so the Pharisees were in constant hostility with this less than complete approach. And these two groups had been at odds for hundreds of years before Jesus was born. So when the writer notes that the Pharisees were complaining about who Jesus was eating with and speaking with, he was writing about this deep divide in Jewish society. Now we too have divides in our society. And even more importantly, we have divides within ourselves. We have divides that prevent us from living from our spiritual authenticity. We have a strict, law-abiding part of self that wants to be completely right. And we have a part that simply wants to live in the best way possible in order to have a happy life. And so within us there is this conflict between rules and the flow. Does that sound familiar? So, one approach to finding our lost authenticity is to discover, as the woman did in the parable of the lost coin, hers. And so I want to share you this parable. Jesus is speaking, and he says, "What woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I lost.'" Okay. Seems like a very simple, straightforward story about a woman losing a coin and finding it again, right? So what's the point? Why did Jesus tell this particular story? Well, I find the most clarity for myself when I apply this parable, any parable, to my own journey. So metaphysically, the woman can be seen either as my soul, my Christ nature, or even my personal consciousness. However you would choose to regard that symbol, the action remains the same: the search for something missing. The coin in this parable was most likely part of the woman's bride dowry, and as such it had even a more symbolic value than its actual physical worth. On a personal level, the lost coin is our own original divine creation from which we have been disconnected. Now, I say disconnected, but of course that's apparent. We really can't be disconnected from the divine source that created us. However, my experience in my human life is I often feel disconnected, alone, lost. The woman, my soul, or that part of me that wants to seek and find the lost part, lights the house, my consciousness, lights my consciousness, and cleans and searches, purifying, maybe even evolving, until the lost coin, that self that God created originally, has been found. For that woman, for us, the search and the finding is an act of authenticity. A practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be so that we can embrace that which we truly are. So for me, finding the lost coin is about healing our own woundedness, connecting to others in an authentic way. So did you notice at the end of the parable, the coin is found and the woman calls together friends, neighbors, and to tell them of her success, she says, "Rejoice with me, for I have found that which I had lost." So we take our wholeness and we share it in community. Our whole self shows up with joy. The journey of becoming real is both an inner finding and an outer expressing. The author and the poet Mark Nepo speaks to this dual process. He wrote a book, The Exquisite Risk. Well, he wrote many books, but I dearly love his Exquisite Risk. And in that he writes the following. It was cancer that forced me to break open instead of just breaking. It was almost dying that made me realize that the key to my survival depended more on strengthening my connections to all of life than on strengthening my individual will. So what does it mean to be real? I would suggest that it involves both an outer commitment and an inner commitment. An outer commitment to live as close to our experience as possible, and an inner commitment to keep our individual spirit aligned with the soul of the world. An outer commitment to stay transparent until what we experience is what we feel, and an inner commitment to stay transparent until who we are is joined to the source of life, the way a drop of rainwater joins the ocean. I end that passage. So, how does our drop of rainwater join the ocean? How do we do this work of self-integrating of lost parts? My experience says that the opportunities to become real live from our spiritual authenticity of showing up in the conflicts and challenges of life. It is in those challenges that we grow. The outer conflict that we experience is often most simply a reflection of an internal conflict in which we have not yet reclaimed our wholeness. We must not run from ourselves. If we are willing to face both the known and the unknown parts of ourselves, we will find how they connect, how they can complement one another. On a personal level, one of the most powerful practices I have experienced to be able to find and to integrate lost or incomplete parts of self is the quantum living process. The quantum living process uses techniques based in quantum theory and in cutting-edge brain science in order to defuse triggers that we're still holding on to from our misunderstood moments in our childhood, those childhood beliefs. And it creates new neural pathways in which one can find and integrate the lost part of self. Quantum living process can transform my experience of the world. And currently we're doing a class, and 6 congregants of this beloved community are experiencing that work on a very direct and personal level. And my hope is that more of you will have a chance to do so in the coming months and years. Finding the lost, becoming real, letting go of who we think we are supposed to be in order to embrace the spiritual truth of what we truly are. This is the work that we are called to as individuals. It is also the work of this church. in the next few months, our time together will be filled with new and exciting ways to find ourselves, to evolve into a more complete expression of that divine love that we're called to be. And just as the woman gathered her neighbors and her friends upon finding that lost coin, we, Unity of Louisville, is called to gather together as community and to find the joy in the ongoing work of transition. For I have discovered that life is just one transition after another. And so, if you think it's over, it's not. This is a time for us to embrace the spiritual truth of what we are. If becoming real means that you are loved for a long, long time, then you are surely in the right place for that. And if becoming real means that we get to choose how we show up as our authentic self, then you are in the right place for that. May your journey to real call you to say with that woman, "Rejoice with me, for I have found that which I lost." And then may that be the truth. Namaste.